Hello, welcome to my presentation on physical activity's effect on student well-being. So my research question is that I'm trying to find the association of team-based and non-team-based physical activity on youth mental health using data provided by high school students attending River City Science Academy, the school I attend. So basically my introduction is that as you all know, there's currently a pandemic sweeping the world. We're in, the later parts of it now, but at the beginning of this project, there was a lot of uncertainty about what was going on, and because of that, a lot of our lives have changed very drastically. And one of the things that have affected me personally the most is the physical activity. Since I had to be home all the time, I haven't gotten much of a chance to be active and go out, do stuff with my friends. And I started wondering how that's kind of affecting, how that, not being able to be active affects people's mental health. Um, my project doesn't focus on COVID-19 specifically, but instead I'm looking at physical activity as a whole and whether or not being active has a positive or negative or any sort of impact on the mental health of adolescents. So my first source is a source done in Canada. This was my model paper throughout the rest of my research, and basically what they did is they looked at the data from the 2015-2016 Canadian Community Health Survey that sampled over 100,000 adolescents on their levels of anxiety, well-being, and their physical activity. Um, this paper was the one that I looked at whenever I needed to know what I was going to do. And basically what I was doing is I found a gap that a paper like this hasn't been done in America before, where they specifically like surveying and looking at the students themselves. So that's where I come in, hopefully, to get some data. And they found that yes, there was actually a positive change in mental health whenever students participated in physical activity. Not major, but definitely noticeable. My second source was one that was pretty much the same thing, honestly, except it was done in Europe. And they did basically the same thing, except they directly surveyed students, over 10,000 students on their levels of anxiety, depression, well-being, blah, 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 physical activity. This is what I'm doing, but on a much smaller scale in RCSA, a school in Florida. They also found that there was actually a positive gain in students who participated in regular physical activity, um, backing up the previous source as well. So my method of choice was a Google form that I directly administered to the students in RCSA, high school students in specific. Um, and according to website Question Protocol, a survey is a research method used for collecting data from a predefined group of respondents to gain information and insights into various topic and interest. My predefined group of respondents were the high school students at RCSA, and the information and insights on various topic interests that I was trying to find was their levels and types of physical activity, as well as their overall mental health and how they feel that physical activity affects them. So I also use this thing called the PHQ-9, or the Patient Health Questionnaire 9. And basically what this is it's a basically like a depression index. You answer questions and you answer like a 1 to 3, and depending on how high your score is, you are rated on the depression severity, with 0-4 being down to minimal, 5-9 being mild, 10-14 moderate, 15-19 moderately severe, and 20-27 being severe. And basically what this does is it lets us kind of get like a number to place students in. Like if you have a really high PHQ-9 score, then you're more likely to be depressed or have poor mental health. But if you score low, then you're probably doing a little bit better than those who scored higher. This is also used along with qualitative questions like, oh yeah, I feel like I'm doing good, or I feel like I've been doing poor recently. But it's just both of these are helpful to get a feel of where student mental health is standing. So for my procedure, I started by actually making the survey itself, which consisted of roughly 10 to 20 questions, which would keep it short and simple enough that students, could complete it without losing motivation, but also have enough questions that I can gather all that data that I needed to actually complete my research. Um, My apologies. After I completed the actual survey itself, I needed to get it approved by Mr. Shaw as well as the school admins before moving on, which I did through a series of emails and reconsiderations and stuff like that. And after I did that, I then sent out a consent form to parents who wanted to actually have their children participate in my survey. And once the parents responded with yes or no, I sent out the survey to students to actually complete. And after enough time had passed, roughly a month or so, I then used Google Forms survey data collection to collect all my data and begin analyzing my data. So some limitations of my project were that my population size was very small. I could only do it on high schoolers who were located in River City Science Academy, and that only gave me about 50-ish responses to my survey, which definitely could make my results sort of inaccurate. It's also important to note that it would be nice to do it in multiple different areas as well. Like if I could get 10 students from 10 different schools, that would be better than just 100 from one school. So I can get, gain more variety and not limit it to just one small niche of population. So for my results, I put everything into simple charts that you could look at here that show that males were actually found to participate in much more physical activity than females. As you can see here, 75% of males participate in more than 30 minutes of physical activity a day compared to only 56% in females, as well as the lower amounts were like the percentages of students in the no physical activity were higher than the low physical activity as well. Similar pattern follows as well for participating in sports, but to a lesser extent. 41% of males participate in sports like basketball or football, while 32% of females participate in sports like basketball, football, soccer, etc. So for the PHQ-9 health survey, students were asked to fill out a questionnaire to give them a number result of like their depression scale, basically. And interestingly enough, it was found that participating in sports like basketball, soccer, football does actually lower your PHQ-9 score. As you can see here, males went on average from 5 to 9 down to 0 to 4, which is almost nothing. But with females, it was actually much higher across the board, as their average for people who do not participate in sports was 15 to 19, which is extremely high, while females who participated in the sports were 10 to 14, which is still very high, but definitely less than 15 to 19. This shows that there was actually a very large difference between males and female, which became an important point for my paper. As you can see here, I also looked at their like self-reported feelings, the qualitative data, like I haven't been feeling great recently, I've been feeling sad, I've been feeling happy, something that's not number-based. And then what I did is I matched that up with their PHQ-9 scores, and you can see that among students who reported having poor mental health, their PHQ-9 scores were higher. Among students reporting average mental health, their PHQ-9 scores were average, and vice versa for both males and females, which helps back up the PHQ-9 data, as I wasn't sure if it was completely accurate given how high some of the results were. So one of the most significant parts of my paper was that there was a humongous difference between the male and the female data collected. For example, among all males, even the ones who didn't participate in any physical activity, their mental health was still better than pretty much every female who did or didn't participate in physical activity. This was not backed up by any other papers in a similar topic, such as the Canadian or the European one, causing this to stand out significantly in my paper. This makes me think that there is definitely further research that is going to be needed to be done in RCSA or Jacksonville or Florida or even America as a whole to figure out the humongous differences between male and female mental health, whether this be environmental, societal, just anything that could be influencing their mental health negatively. So to conclude, The research done has found that there is definitely positive effects of physical activity on the mental health of adolescents. It has been shown by the data that I collected that in both males and females, participating in physical activity definitely does increase your overall mental well-being. But there are, however, many questions to open up, specifically pertaining to male versus female mental health. Like I said before, there is definitely going to be needed to be done more research, finding the differences between males and females. And I think this opens up a lot of windows for further research in the future. So to conclude, to answer my question, yes, there is definitely a positive effect on mental health among students who participate in physical activity. This somewhat fills in my gap of not much of research being done in America specifically, surveying adolescents. But the notion that physical activity does improve mental health is supported, yes. I think that many studies in the future are going to find different factors that also affect the mental health beyond just physical activity, and I am quite interested to see what those are. Overall, I think the future is looking very bright for teenagers given all the resources and studying being done to find out what makes people happy, what makes people tick, and I'm looking forward to seeing the future. Anyway, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed. Here are my works cited if you want to look at them. These were the most helpful sources. Thank you.